All right, welcome back to Don't Think, Just Charge. I'm Dave, he's Harvey, and he's Tano, joining us again for another bit of a beta catch-up. Let's get into it. It is week 5 of the beta. We have just an hour and a bit ago had the Hero Auras update pushed out. And so we thought it would be really good to get Tano back on the channel to have a little bit of a discussion, see how beta's going, and just hang out and vibe for a little bit, really. Like we haven't got any particular points that we want to drill into this time. We had a really lovely intro to you the last time you were on the channel, and we had some really positive, lovely comments and feedback about that. And now let's just have a chat, see how beta's going. We know you're having a really fun time with it, and just begin to kind of explore what's going on inside the head of Tano when it comes to design. So let's just kick things off. Tano, talk us through how you're finding beta so far.
It's interesting because I feel like now we are at a point of the beta. It's like I can see the light again. Yeah. I feel like there was a moment in the beta where I felt a little bit lost. It's actually interesting. Okay. I feel like the beta kind of did like a loop-de-doop, because I launched the beta and it was like, here's like all these very complex rules with like 1,000 tokens, and it works completely different than what we're used to. And then I remember very quickly I corrected to like, okay, let's do stuff with like, some conditionals and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And then it was like, hold on, let's just strip all the conditionals. And then it was like, and that's kind of where we are now. And then I was like, okay, let's try and see how if we can bring back some conditionals and make it work. And I feel like I tried that for like 2 weeks-ish. And it just, too many issues, too many things. And it was like, okay, let's just go back. And I think also in some ways, the attitude changed for a moment there. I think that there was like a lot of confusion because I was doing a lot of changes. I was not posting like any plans. And so, for instance, one of the things that I'm doing now is I posted a timeline, like a schedule where it's like, hey, every Monday it's going to be this patch. Every Friday it's going to be this patch. You can expect this. This is what's going to happen. And I think that actually was a very, very positive change because now...
Really positive.
Yeah, I feel like the whole discourse kind of changed and things are more calm. It's interesting because I really feel like we are fully, like, people are at this point really just saying like, this is what I wish you did. Like, this is cool. I love this idea. Let's do this. And like, we are doing stuff that has nothing to do with the original scope of the beta. There are still a couple of things here and there, right? Like, we're still tweaking some army-wide rules. We're tweaking the hero auras and stuff like that, for example, the spells. But a lot of the changes that are happening, it's like, oh yeah, this was never in the scope of the beta. Like, if you play fantasy, we changed like how Sergeant works. That was never in the scope of the beta. And then we were talking with people and blah, 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 blah. So the beta is going well. I actually think that now it's much cooler and nicer than it was 2 weeks ago-ish. I feel like there was like that was maybe like the lowest, the darkest point where it was like, people were confused, changes were happening, there was a lot of negativity, and it's interesting because I feel like a lot of the bad vibes, let's say, a lot of the negativity was not necessarily always tied to what is actually happening with the rules, but more about what's happening with the process, the uncertainty that people had. All of those things, I think, made people feel like, what the fuck, every change is happening, it's horrible. Instead, now it's like, oh, okay, like, all right, for a week, this is what's happening, and now we're going to look at this, and then, oh, let's look at the next thing, and it's like, oh, okay, and I feel like people are way more relaxed, to the point where now the feedback threads are not really being used to do feedback anymore, but most people are just, like, chatting and discussing stuff, which is nice for them, but sucks for me because I have to sift through long discussions, and I'm like, this is not feedback. Like, I need the feedback. Where is the juice? Sorry, Harvey, you were saying something.
So one of the things that really stood out to me, was it like last week or so, you posted a survey, and the amount of people giving feedback on how you should do a survey was insane. Like that is kind of the stage the beta is at the point where people are like, oh no, the process is what I want to give feedback on. I no longer care if my army gets +1 to hit or sixes on charges and stuff.
Yeah.
Which is kind of wild to me.
That survey was actually very interesting.
You mentioned on the topic of like the scope of the beta shifting as time's gone on. How are you feeling about that kind of scope widening a bit, and maybe people getting a few more like wishlisty items in with unit changes and stuff? Because I imagine there's probably a balancing act between like, I want to give you guys what you want, but I also don't want to say this is also now a unit rework.
I think it's great because all the armies are getting improved, and like lots of small things that otherwise would have had to wait until whenever to get changed are being tweaked now, which I think is great. What is less great is we're all very involved. We all are very deep into the beta and whatever, and there's lots of people that are into the beta, right? And what we have to think or not forget is that once we go out of beta, there's going to be all these people that had no idea. They did not pay attention. And suddenly they're going to be faced with way more changes that were originally planned. I think they are positive changes, but still it means that friction of change is going to be greater than was originally intended. I hope that ultimately it's okay. I think for the game it's better and people will get used to it, but it's kind of like the thing where like the beta, because I'm updating all the armies from both games at the same time, it's this huge thing. If I had updated 3 armies every couple of months for 3 years, this would be nothing. You know?
I've been
there wouldn't
saying
be any
this.
of this craziness.
I've been saying this since we saw week 1, day 1 and 2, I think, when we saw all of the, how do we say it nicely? The strong emotions, the strong feedback that was coming from the players. When I saw that, and I think everyone in the community had the same response of going, holy shit, how is Tano dealing with this? It was that point of thinking, this is why other game companies do releases in slightly smaller bites. Like, I was thinking about League of Legends, which Harvey and I played in the early years of League of Legends, and every year they'd rework something to start a new season. And the first few years, they'd just rework one of the roles in it, the jungle role, and people be like, you've changed the entire game. And it's like, no, they've changed one actual thing. Fair enough, it's like 20% of the game in a 5v5, but they've changed one thing. They have tweaked one dial, and I was trying to find a way of explaining the way I'm perceiving this to Harvey, and I just can't do it. But the best I've got is, have you ever sat in front of a mix deck for music and sound in a recording studio?
No.
Okay. Sometimes when you push a dial, you know those big desks we do all the sliding up and down dials. Sometimes when you push one, it'll be like attached to another channel. And so if you push one dial, one will come up with it. And you're like, no. I didn't want you to come up. I only wanted this one thing to come up. And then I can't explain it beyond then, because you'll be like, right, I'm going to push this one down, and another thing goes up instead. And because you started with the 7 changes, but you started with 7 changes to 50 armies. You know, we're already in the realms of the hundreds of changes over the course of a single rollout. That then doesn't account for how those 2 armies will engage with one another. If army lists were built the exact same way every single time, then that would be even more limited, but it's not. So you're suddenly in this place where you're changing a few things with one army 50 times over, and you've just got hundreds of thousands of interactions of changes, and it's just like, oh my god, this project is absolutely monstrous. And then we see your approach develop over time to being, okay, let's strip out conditional things, to the point where, and we kind of touched on it, you had the survey then go out, and I know that you weren't particularly keen to have a survey in the first place. How did that process develop for you?
So the survey, it's okay. I'm not keen about the idea of a survey where I'm like, hey, what do you want? Or like, you know, you let me know. It's more that the reason I did this survey is more for me to understand how do people perceive rules that might be different from how I perceive rules, or how I think the audience perceives rules. So it was literally just like, hey, like, you know, what kind of rules do you like to see on your heroes? What type of rules what kind of attack spells, whatever it was, right? And the interesting thing there is that it allowed me to create this sort of like ranking where I could see like, oh, like there's these 2 rules, for example, that had a huge spike of nobody likes them, and I was like, for me it was like, they're fine rules. Or like, another thing that's interesting is I purposefully put rules that were similar to each other but slightly different, like a weapon rule that works the same way as a unit rule, but it's a weapon rule, just to see like, are people even really perceiving that there is a difference? And sometimes you will have like, this was interesting, we had a rule that was plus 3 inch, I think it's called charge, extra charge, I don't remember, whatever. It's like plus 3 inches to charge. And then we have another rule called rapid charge, which is plus 4 inches to charge. But it said, one rule said plus 3 inches to charge, the other one said rapid charge, where I explained it's plus 4. And the first one got voted more times than the second one. Even though the second one is basically the same rule, actually a tiny bit better, 33% better. And I think it's just like, okay, because people are used to seeing this, and so a lot of interesting thing came out of it. And yeah, I actually used it for to rework the hero auras, because like, essentially, my god, again, when you're working on 50 plus armies at a time over multiple games, whatever, so the way that I essentially did the hero rework is like, okay, I took all the rules that are available, right? And then I essentially did a big separation into 4 categories. So we have like the melee combat stuff, we have the ranged combat stuff, we have defensive stuff, and we have utility stuff. And then within each of these, I kind of created 3 categories of like how wanted are those by people, or how appreciated are those by people. So you have high, medium, low. And then within those, you had another ranking of high, medium, low. And then basically it allowed me to have like everything really ranked in many different ways. And then for each army, what I did is I basically looked at every army and I was like, okay, what is the primary function of this army? Is it offensive army, defensive army, or is it a utility army? And then I was like, what's the secondary trait of this army? Is it a mostly offensive army that then is a bit defensive and then it's very little utility, right? Like, what is the thing that I'm trying? I kind of ranked what does each army want to be, you know? And then I also further rank each army on like, how elite is it? Is it an army where everybody is, 3 up, 2 ups? Is it an army where everybody's 5 ups, 5 ups, right? And do that ranking. And then basically I use all of these things together to combine and seek rules and do like, it's a huge thing. And then I'm just going, I'm like, ta, 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 and I'm applying them. And of course, when I choose which rules go to which army, I'm also like taking into account what is the army's standard rule, what do they already have on their units, what do they want, what do they not want. Also very important is there a balance between how many rules do they have which are viewed favorably by people and less favorably by people? Because I don't want one army where it's like, here's 5 top chosen auras that everybody loves, right? I want there to be a balance. Like, hey, here's some stuff, and if your army is more, I don't know, offensive, then I think, okay, you should have the nicer offensive stuff, and maybe you get the okay defensive stuff. And if your army is more defensive, right? And then that way you create a little bit of like a balance where, okay, like you can really feel that the offensive army is like this, and it's a big thing. And then afterwards, of course, there's tweaking. Then you tweak.
Is there an argument to be said for that being the wrong logic? Like, if we already have offensive armies, do they need offensive auras? Or should we be taking auras that give them to fill up their slots? Like, what's the design decision there?
So that's the thing. I was going to say, do you not want to maybe give a bit more favor to the armies that have fewer units as well? I'm thinking Sky City Dwarves here.
Okay, wait, 2 very different questions.
Go for Harvey's first. Yeah.
No, so
you try to hijack my question, Dave.
I thought it went
well. basically have to make some decisions here, and my point is I feel that if we follow that logic, where basically say, well, this is an offensive army, let's boost the other stuff, you just end up with your armies are like this, and you're trying to do this. Whereas what I'm saying is like, no, I want it to be like this. I want it to be like, this army is leaning towards a play style, and I want to encourage you to have that play style. And I don't want it to be that, well, you have this army that has like really offensive rules, like a really offensive, I don't know, it has Predator, right? Very, very offensive rule, and then also gets all the really good defensive and utility rules, and now it's good at everything, and then other armies are also good at everything. I want armies to be like, okay, my army is very good at this thing, but not so. It's good at mobility, but it's not so good at offensive. It's good at defensive, but it's not so good at utility. And
I suppose
so
there's kind of a discussion to be had there about, do you want I'm saying this kind of from a third-party perspective, knowing that you do want to design armies to be good at things and have a specialty, but you also want to design holes into them a little bit. You want to design weaknesses in, because otherwise you get an army that does everything, and it just feels like no matter what an opponent does, what your friends are doing, you're just always winning, and they're always feeling bad because you're that one guy who never loses because your army just does everything.
One of the things that one of the things I'm trying to do there also is I try to make sure that armies don't have the perfect combo as well. Because that's like, you just start stacking things, and that's really hard, honestly. But spoilers, I guess, for next week, because Harvey, I do think that there is a point to providing that. And the thing is, I want to do that, but via casters. So the casters are your multi-tool where you are going to get the good thing that you usually cannot do, but now it's a casting roll. Now you have to, spend the resource and stuff like that. So that's where I would like to try and push it and be like, okay, you have this army that's really high in offensive, and you want to get like a really good defensive thing, has to go through a caster.
Makes sense. So will the same apply then? Oh wait, so just for that then, are we talking? So I'm running a defensive army, I'm running custodians or whatever, right? Does that mean my spell list will have more aggressive offensive spells, or just more aggressive offensive buffs?
Okay, so if you have custodians, you will probably have... So you have your standard boost, right, as a spell. Then actually, as part of this thing, I'm going to be reworking the marks/debuffs. And so the idea is that I want your... And then your mark and debuff, and then you're gonna have your offensive buff, right? So then you're gonna have usually I would have, let's say custodians are meant to be I don't remember now, but I have a list somewhere. Let's say they are supposed to be like defensive, offensive, utility, right? Although I think custodians are meant to be defensive, utility, offensive. I'm not sure. But let's say offensive, the defensive, offensive, utility, right? So if you're getting auras, you'll get the best defensive ones, you'll get good offensive one, you'll get alright utility ones, right? And then I want the spells to be the other way around. I want your defensive one to be, hey, it's just your boost, it's your regular thing, and then let's say your second thing is offense, that's going to be better, and then your utility is going to be like from the top. By the way, also it's very interesting when you look at the survey, although I don't share it on purpose. Besides a couple of like spikes where it's like people hate this rule, a lot of stuff is very much in the middle-ish. Like there is stuff that is obviously at the top.
Curve.
+1 to hit, AP1, they're always going to be at the top, But a lot of stuff is kind of like there in the middle as well. So,
with the survey, have you looked at any of the rules and gone like, this needs reworking, this needs changing, this needs removing, off the back of, the masses rebelling against the one thing?
Yeah, for sure. So there are some rules that I think I've completely understood that I knew it before, but I was trying something here with 3.5 where, for example, the rules like bash and batter, really the reason those rules exist is they allow you to break Balval, right? Yeah. That's the reason they exist. So, for example, if you have they were introduced because of units like Saurian Raptor Riders, where we wanted to have you to be able to have a lance. We wanted to be able to have a creature that has a bite, so that they would have an attack. Well, but now you have 2 attacks on a T1, so it stops there. And so Bash, being a 6-up, we don't count it towards Balval, because it's not statistically relevant enough that it would break the Balval. And so that's a way for us to give you like a 3rd attack that isn't really part of Balval. Yeah. And so when I was giving people like a Bash aura, for me was like, oh, that's awesome. Like you are breaking Balval, right? Like you're putting this on your orcs. Suddenly they have 20 more potential rolls to get an attack, but people don't perceive it that way, which I understand. They just see it like, well, I'm putting it on my unit of 5. It's going to proc 1 time. What's the fucking point? So for instance, those rules I understand, they have their function. but otherwise, like, they don't make sense like as auras. So now they're not even a part of auras at all. Whereas there are rules like Entrenched, for example, rated pretty low, and I think it's gonna need a rework. It's not gonna be an aura. I think we put it once in the HDF because it was just thematic. And I actually did some things here and there that I thought, like, this is thematic. Fuck it, let's do it. But I think Entrenched and Artillery, like, those rules are gonna need like a proper rework. But to be seen. Yeah. I still have so many things on my plate, and there's 4 more weeks to go.
Yeah. And
I think the bash and batter thing, I think for me has always been Furious. Obviously gives you an extra weapon hit, and weapons you can spend money on too, right, and get quality effects. But I think, is it batter the one that's just 1 hit and no AP on it, and bash is the one with AP on it? I think it might be.
No, bash is 1 wound, and batter is 1 AP wound.
Oh, devour.
Okay, so the one that's just a hit has always been the one that's just been a bit like, well, I mean, it sounds nice enough, right? But really, like, 1 wound is so much more valuable. Yes. So I mean, I can see the thing from that, right? The same with all the retreating strike stuff, which is now gone as well, I believe. That feedback, right?
There is no more retreating strike and advancing strike. Again, those are rules that it's tough. They're in the back end, by the way. I'm leaving a lot of stuff in the back end for people to then be able to use for armies. It's tough because it's like, people are like, I want new rules, I want new stuff, it's interesting, I want cool things. And I'm like, here's the cool thing. And they're like, this is not as powerful as AP1, and I don't want it, and I will never use it, and I don't want it on my army, it's wasting my space, why am I getting this? And I'm like, fuck, like, every time I give you something inventive, you're like, I hate it. I'm like, it's a cool rule, you don't have to use it, it's fun, all right, you retreat. Like, my thought, for example, with the retreating strike was like, you go, you strike at a unit, you kill them, then you retreat, and then you end up near another unit, and now you're actually doing an out of sequence, theoretically, attack, because now you're actually able, for example, to stun or shake or rout 2 units in a round, right? Because you charge these guys, then you moved on to this small scattered unit of 2-3 dudes, you kill 2 more, but the audience has spoken,
It's really interesting watching, I say interesting in a weird way, like, watching how people are reacting. Like, I will always get a little bit weird and passionate about seeing psychology in action. I absolutely love to watch it, and then people will mention something and I'll go, ooh, special interest time. But the psychology, like you're saying, like, things have calmed down a lot. Things are way more chilled, I think, now than they were in the early weeks. And this is the point where I think that you're almost going to be able to push the envelope a little bit and then now bring in some of the more new and unique effects. But
yes.
I'd be interested to see how players react to it, where it's either done in isolation, like the retreating strike sort of thing, or if you combo it fully with, like, the Dark Elves, who are, as of today, back to not hit and run. It is hit and run. Harassing, which is hit and run. Yeah. Harassing. Because that's the sort of place where you could do it in a meaningful way when you combo that ability to move it from a 3-inch move to a 6-inch move. That's the sort of place where I wonder how people would receive it in isolation in a specific deployment, and then maybe not have such a bad feel.
I have plans, as always, because what I realized is, like, okay, well, first off, again, part of the problem, I'm calling it a problem, but it's like, part of the problem is that right now, because everybody is watching everybody get something new, they're comparing their stuff to other people's stuff, right?
Always, yeah.
Because completely different. If randomly out of nowhere in one of the quarterly patches I had given a couple of units retreating strike, I don't think there would have been any reaction to it at all. Some people would have been like, oh, cool. Some people would be like, and who cares? But now it's like, wait, we got retreating strike, but you got tagged for piercing attack. Like, why am I getting this, right? I think
this is a really big uphill battle you're always going to have, especially in beta. Because I'm firmly in the camp of going, like, this is cool, but whilst one army might get something cool, another army is going to get 2 things that are cool. And this army is now -1 point on that. And it's
the optimist view on that whole thing there, is it? So one's got 2, one's got 1, that's -1 now. We shift everything down to 0. Yeah.
But it's 1 fewer. And you're always, it's that thing of like the grass is always greener. You're always going to look over at someone else's.
100%. Everybody's just looking at each other's armies and being like, oh, I want that one. And I'm like, there's a reason you don't have that one. But hold on. I to finish the point. I know. I have all these rules in my back burner, and my plan is at some point, hopefully still during the beta, is I'm gonna use narrative heroes to use those rules. Because narrative heroes are 100% optional, and they are the type of heroes where, hey, here's some weird fucking thing. If you like it, take this narrative hero. If not, no problem. And I feel like it's the type of situation where you can have something that's idiosyncratic. Is that how you call it?
Where it doesn't necessarily marry up with the rest of the theme of what's going on?
Sure. But yes, and that's the idea that I want to try. So use, like, at least each army that has a bunch of narrative heroes, at least give one of them something that's, like, weird. And new.
I think one of the key things about OPR that often people don't recognize when they're looking at changes and stuff and comparing to other things is that everything is costed, right? So it's like it's like, Def 6 I think is amazing because it's the cheapest Def, right? Because I don't want to spend points on Def, right? But for some people, they're like, oh, Def 2, that's all I ever want, Def 2. And I'm like, you're insane for spending an extra 40 points per model on Def 2, and I can have Def 6, and I feel just good about it. But it's the same for stuff like Retreating Strikes, right? Where you see something like Retreating Strikes, and you're like, that's a waste of a slot, which is kind of fair because it's the way the beta's being designed. But really, if it costs you 0.7 points or whatever, then it's fine. I guess that kind of falls apart slightly when you consider that 5 points is the minimum for an upgrade. But, as an aura or something like that, it'll be a lot cheaper and such. So I think oftentimes people look at things in perhaps the wrong lights because, you see it now at the moment, right? The Prime Brothers threads are full of people going like, Def 3 actually was fine. Because they're like, I get to put more minis on the table, right? They were like, I never realized how expensive Def 2 was. Well, it's really expensive, right? Now you get to play your fucking army. Go crazy, guys.
There are a couple of threads that is just like, I look at and I'm like, and again, I think this is kind of a thing about the psychology of the beta. I'm a drop in the ocean. If I do one comment here, there are 50 other people either saying the same or something slightly variable, and I look at that and I just think, no, I'm going to go and spend my time playtesting other armies. I'm going to playtest armies. I think, actually, one of the things that put me on to DAO...
I knew you were going to say DAO.
Genuinely, it's because I sorted it by comments, and it was the bottom army, and I went, I always wanted to play a lot of DAO, so let's get into it. And I did, and I had thoughts and opinions, but like it was that thing of going, let's start to engage in the feedback process in a way that can hopefully be additive. Just let's actually be someone where we have 3 people commenting. I think Volcanic Dwarves was another one, and I love my Volcanic Dwarf army. I'm really excited to keep on building on them with some of the new official OPR dwarves, because those Cold Berserkers just seems cool and fun. But it was another one. I think there was like 2 comments before I made my first one, and I was like, Human Defense Force had 80, and I was like, okay.
I think there was an army that like I went today to like give them to add the patch notes, and there had been no comments since the last patch note. I was like, all right, I guess nobody's playing. I don't know what it was, Rebel Guerrillas or something like that.
Yeah.
I've got a question about popularity as well. So obviously, Age of Fantasy. We know this because we record videos off this principle, which is Age of Fantasy is less popular than GDF.
Sure.
Do you and currently Age of Fantasy is synced to GDF, as in Dark Elves share the same racial, same with High Elves, same with Wood Elves, same with Elden Jesters and Deep Sea Elves, and then Custodians and Eternal Wardens and stuff like that. What's the reasoning behind that? Because I mean, I'm sure you've probably seen the comments today with the Elf deshuffling. Age of Fantasy players are going like, why has this happened? And GDF players are going like, thank the fucking Lord this has happened. This is exactly what we want. So to me, it seems like maybe that's a shortcut just to make designing easier. But it also makes it feel like GDF's more important, which obviously isn't the case. No. But what's the reason behind linking those 2 things together and how it's influencing your design?
Yeah, so there are lots of different design principles behind not just like the actual games, but the philosophy of OPR as a whole. And one of the things about the way that OPR is designed is it's meant to be very low friction, and it's meant to be very easy to go from one thing to the other. So for me, it's important that if you play, you're like, I love elves, and I love dark elves. I love that, them goths, right? Which is great. And then you're like, okay, I play my fantasy dark elves, right? And I got used to them, and they have harassing and blah, blah, blah. And now I switch to Grimdark Future. It's like, oh, I know all this stuff. Like, I already am here. I already know what's up. It's the same reason why a lot of people say, like, oh, I think that skirmish should be a completely different system. It should be a 2d6 system. It should work. And I'm like, I do. There is plans to shift a bit of things in skirmish, but the idea is it should stay very related, because I want you to be able to play quest and then switch to skirmish and be like, oh, okay, it's just I changed these 3 things, and then switch to battle. We call it battle, though technically it has no name, the category. Battle scale, and then, oh, okay, it's just this, and then regiments, and you're like, oh, okay, it's just this. And ideally, if one day there is, apocalyptic, it would be like, oh, okay, and it would just keep going. So one of the things, and I think this is very important, and I want to keep working with the community on the fantasy dark elves, is I almost actually think about it the opposite way, where it's like, I think it would be a shortcut to just not properly tackle the army and design it in such a way that I can make it work, and just be like, well, fuck it, let me just give them something else. It's like, I think there is a way that we can totally make harassing work for fantasy dark elves as well. We just have to unlock, like, what exactly is it? And I noticed this actually during this process with a lot of armies, where I saw at the beginning of the beta that people had a problem with certain armies, and not even problems about the beta stuff of the army, but like problems from V3.4. And I was like, okay, and it was like, tweak this, tweak that, and suddenly people are like, oh, this army feels great now. And I'm like, oh, really? Like, I just gave fast to this thing, I changed relentless on that guy, I changed, defense 3+ to 4+ on this guy, ambush became optional, and suddenly you're like, this army is great. And I'm like, okay, I think I need to properly tackle, for example, the fantasy dark elves, and understand, how do I make this work so that it's going to be awesome for people, rather than just be like, wow, fuck it, let me do another thing.
I think there's a really big thing to be said there about, like, bottom-up design almost, of going, because at the moment this is very top-down, of going, here are the 7 things, the army rules, the auras, the casters, the marks, the tags, the debuffs, and so on. But, like, so DAO, I'm going to talk about DAO because it's something that I've thrown myself into, an army that I just previously kind of rejected because really hard to play, really awkward, and pretty crap, I think, in 3.4. I played a lot of as the weeks were rolling through. When you brought in Security Grunts, the name aside, I know there's feedback on the name. When you brought in Security Grunts, I played a game against them, and I lost with Custodians. And on the back end of that, I was thinking, I made a few plays. I played Custodians in a different way.
You lost to Adam as well. I
lost to Adam Ford. Shout out.
Okay, so
yeah.
Wow.
So that's Adam's one win of this century.
We love
maybe?
Adam. So, no, he's beaten his wife a few times recently. He was on. He's on a skirmish winning.
Context.
Oh yeah, shit. No, we love Adam. We spend way too much of our time annoying him. But yeah, I lost to Adam, and I was like thinking about it and reflecting on the game afterwards, and I was thinking, you know what? I would have loved to play the DAO list Adam played. And I think that Security Grunts are a really small thing, just bringing in a tough, resilient unit that is deceptively resilient. It's def 3+, but minus to charge and minus to hit when charging really stacked it up, that this unit was so difficult to budge. And I think that combined with the fact that the unit could remain a bit of a threat with its good shooting, but a threat that the shooting got worse the closer you got to it. It made his decisions difficult. It made my engaging with it difficult. And I came away from that thinking, okay, I think DAO are actually probably in a good spot now. There's a lot to be said. I know there's a lot of discussion around targeting visor and the spotting lasers and things like that. But I think it was in a good spot. And it was small changes like that of just giving them a new unit model to go with.
Which is interesting because all that stuff actually, I didn't do anything new, because Security Grunts are just the old grunts. I removed the shotgun,
Yeah.
Gave it to these guys, and then I just took the upgrades from the spotters and gave them to them, and then the particle wall or shield, I don't remember what it's called now.
The +1 defense one. That was
and
it was
I was
actually,
done. Easy,
when you did
done.
that, and you put in
simple
the 5/4s with a +1 defense upgrade. I was looking at that and going, 5/3s. That's going to be really well costed, with the ability to good shot up to 4 up for shooting, and then 3 up with targeting visor. I was like, that's a 3/3 unit. That's really good. That is something that's going to help. And yeah, it was that. It's that subtle, small change that can just suddenly make things click. It's like you've got a jigsaw puzzle that's like 5 pieces, and you're missing this middle piece, and it just brings it, and it's like, oh, that is a complete picture.
The risk of getting cancelled. So obviously the factions in one-page rules are based on Warhammer armies, right? So there is a balancing act here.
I mean, no, but yes.
Many
yes,
of them have comparisons.
Yes. I mean, yeah. Not all of them, but yes. So is there a tension in your mind between keeping people coming from Warhammer over to one-page rules, their expectations aligned, and also doing the same thing within your own game? So, for example, right now, the Dark Elf units, they never used to have fast. Harassing is a new thing for them. They never had the mobility. You're now giving them a piece of mobility, but people coming from Warhammer might come over and be like, well, actually, this isn't how I expect Dark Elves to play anyway. So how are you going to, what's your thought process on navigating that problem?
Hold on. Now I've been so deep into beta, and you just said they never had fast. And I need to double check. Oh, they did not have fast. That's true.
And high elves as well.
High elves didn't have fast either, yeah. So none of the fantasy elves had speed.
Ah, true. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think part of it is like I am correcting my old mistakes, because it's like I just forgot. Let's just be honest. Like I just forgot. Like I just forgot. Yeah. And actually, it's interesting because things shifted over so many times. Because a long time ago, my God, this is 8, 10 years ago. I don't remember. Elves used to have an army-wide rule. Which is the high elves at least, which is that at the time we had, and we actually removed this concept at some point, and now we kind of brought it back. We had combat timings, so basically you had strikes first and strikes last, which we kind of brought back. Now it's counter, but we always just do it as strikes last essentially, and so that was the high elf army wide, which was called always strikes first, I think, or just strikes first. And then eventually it was removed, and I guess it was just never replaced. Yeah. And that's it. Like that's how it happens. But to your question, yes and no, a bit of both. The biggest thing for me is I'm making a game where I'm saying, hey, if you have models, you can use them here. And of course, for a lot of people that means Warhammer models, but for a lot of people that means Mantic models, especially on the fantasy side. For a lot of people it means whatever models, because people have so many fantasy models from so many companies, right? So in terms of having like matching those expectations, to some degree, like I'm not gonna make dwarves fast. I'm not gonna make elves shitty, like have terrible quality, right? I'm not gonna make goblins that are, avatars, right? Although actually a goblin avatar could be kind of cool. So there is that. I think the expectation is more like on that surface level, where it's like it should be an elf is an elf is an elf, right? It should be recognizable. But there are some limits there, and also I think that whenever we get to an army where we can make models, it actually really helps, because that's an opportunity for us to add new units, which then change the paradigm, and people start thinking of the army a bit differently, and they're like, oh, you know what, like this is cool, like I have this, I didn't have this before. Like actually, if you look at the demons, for example, right, they now have a lot of units that they didn't have before, a lot of options. Demons did not have any shooting at all before. Now they have a bunch of shooting units,
right?
Yeah, now they have units with longer range. Now I added, actually, like in the last patch, I added weapons that can target aircraft, right? So a lot of things there. So I think it's yes and no.
Yeah,
bit of both.
You've got there's going to be a balance of the literal fantasy in someone's head. Like even if you just came from like Tolkien, goblins small, hundreds of them. But if you have one heroic, if you have one heroic wizard, you'd expect him to kill 10 of them, that sort of shit. And then you can have Urukai and orcs and big ones, and these are going to be your slightly big, beefier kind of dudes. And then if you bring giants and tree giants in, there is a power fantasy, and elves of course fills into that, and so do dwarves. So there's going to be that sort of crossover, but it is interesting. But at the same time, it's a positive thing for OPR in terms of access to it. Like, you've got this thread going on at the moment of other missing units, and it was interesting. And we will come on to, and I do want to talk about Broken Truth. But
sure. We don't have to, by the way. We can talk about it. It's awesome, but
we don't have to. I want to, because I want to ask about what's coming next. But, we'll talk about that. But I was listening to a video by, I can't remember the name of his channel now, somethingly epic. Ronald Long, his channel. And he was talking.
Is that it, or is that a different one?
This is really bad.
Epic?
Yeah, it might be. Shout out.
Question Epic is in my head. I don't know if that's...
shout out to Ronald.
I was listening to his stuff, and he was talking about like ways to get into OPR, and he was like, if you want to start to play OPR, go onto the website and get the free starter set for Grimdark Future. At the moment, it's got demons in it. And then, if you want more, go to Fantasy, and you'll get more demons of a different sub-faction, and now you've just got shit tons of demons. And my smug head in the back of my mind went, that's some pretty good value for money right there. I was like... shit, this is good value for money, actually. The whole ethos at the moment is just bring your toys. And so before we started recording, we were talking about a project on Kickstarter that I backed, which is called Planet Shark.
Amazing.
Which is, it's loads of little shark dudes with like just shit tons of weapons, right? There are guns. There's also some fantasy ones. Anyone who's seen it in our Discord, like, you know what I'm talking about. I'm really gassed to get my hands on these guys, but I want to play them as halflings mostly. But at the same time, there are Spartan ones that I'm thinking, fuck yeah, that's like, I don't know, some custodian shit or some Eternal Warden shit going in. Like, scaling them up.
Scale them down.
Super teeny sharks. But they've also got like walkers in there. But all of it is just shit that I look at. I didn't even know that game had like a game to it. I saw the minis and I went, fuck yeah, I want that. I want that for my OPR shit.
OPR on the spot.
I'm using that for OPR on the spot. And then it was, I was in the Discord.
Contact them about compatibility. Maybe that's
that'll be sick. Well, they're with, I want to say that the company's a sub-company of Daka Daka Store, who OPR already partners with. I think so. It might be Daka Daka, it might be someone else, but I remember seeing it was like a sub-company of something and being like, oh yeah, I know them because they partner with OPR. But like, I saw that. I was like, this is fucking sick. And then I was in the Discord and someone went, so how have you found playing the game? And I went, there's a game? I had no idea. But it's that sort of thing of like, bring as many of your cool minis as you want. And so you've got to have that power fantasy behind it. But at the same time, there's going to be that balance of just making sure that not everyone's the same. Because, and as well, and this is actually interesting, I kind of want to get your take on this. I've seen like feedback and commentary in the wider sphere of the internet about saying that in 3.4, a lot of the armies feel too samey. And I know it was like part of your initial drive in the beta to help armies find identity. Where are you at the moment on that?
I think it's one small step for VEEP 3.5, one giant step for OPR. Because I think where we are now... Okay, people need to understand. I understand people focus on right now, but it's like everything is a step to the next thing. And this is, everything we do is a V1 of whatever the thing is that we're doing, right? So right now we're doing this beta. For example, we tried all these conditional rules, these crazy rules, whatever. People didn't like them. Okay, we put them by side, right? So now we removed the conditionals and we added a bunch of rules to every army. Actually, I have to say, this latest version feels really good to me because it feels like it's fully in the spirit of 3.4, just a little bit more. It's just a little one step further, right? It's like, okay, well, you're used to Furious from these armies. These armies now have something kind of like Furious, and you're used to Fast from these armies. And then, now they have something that's kind of like Fast, right? And stuff like that. Or they have, defensive thing, and now they have kind of a defensive thing. But there are also a lot of armies now that have, well, not a lot actually. For every because like I have a big list of every type of army-wide rule there is. And some of them have multiple armies. They have 2 armies that have it. I think there is one that has 3 armies that has it, which is fine. Which is fine. Although then once we have gangs, those are going to be repeats, but whatever. But I think we're in a good spot. But also, if in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 3 years, I have a new idea and I'm like, you know what? Right now, Devout from the Sisters and Ferocious from the Orcs works the same way, and we come up with a new idea where like we can change Devout in a way that it doesn't become heavier, it doesn't become, problematic, and it can be cool and different, then let's do it, So it's also like a first step. So who knows what the future will bring? Who knows what happens when new armies come in? Who knows about like what new ideas might happen or might come that then change? And there's a lot of stuff that can happen, and it's always a first step, This has opened to me, it kind of more like opens it opens the door to the idea and the concept of like, hey, in OPR, every army has a little something, Yeah. And right now, maybe some armies have the same little something, and in the future that might change. But I want that to become the standard. And I saw some people, I'm actually very curious to see how this develops. I saw some people say like, oh, V3.5, very cool, but I like my V3.4. Once V3.5 comes out, I'm going to make my custom armies without the army-wide rules, which, fine, that's why the creator is there. But I wonder how many of those people are going to eventually switch back, and I wonder how many people will actually look at custom armies and be like, wait, this army doesn't have an army-wide rule? Like, why would I play this? Like, why doesn't this army have an army-wide rule? And I wonder if we are setting a precedent where that will become the expectation.
We've spoken about this quite a lot.
With the rules designer as well, the potential for things to get complicated is really there. So I think you'll very quickly get feedback on exactly what level of complexity the OPR community likes, because because people will immediately run away with it, right? They'll immediately go and design extremely complicated factions that nobody will ever make a list for, and they'll make extremely simple ones that never make a list for, and it'll be a big like crowdfunding thing. Version 1 of the beta had a quick turnaround. Is there anything from the first version of the beta or any of the versions we've had previous to now that you were sad to see go, or like a mechanic that you thought was going to be super fun and well received and it wasn't well received? Anything that you just thought like, God, I mean, if I got my chance to just force one thing in regardless of community feedback, it would have been this one thing? Instinctively,
no. I think there was a lot of really cool things in there, but I understand why people don't want them. So it's more like, that was a cool idea, but I'm like, yeah, it could never work. So for example, like, one of the things that I did like is there was a lot of work before the beta came out in making sure, like I said, that every army had something unique, but also we have a couple of factions like Battle Brothers or the whole Havoc things, which they have a lot of sub-factions. So one of the things that I liked was that, for example, I had created this sort of like category of rule, which then had lots of sub-rules. So, for example, we had the Reckless type rule, right?
Yeah.
The idea of the Reckless rule is you activate the unit, you roll a die, 2 up, you get your thing. On a 1, the enemy gets the thing against you, right? And then what was cool about it that I liked is that then every Havoc army had a variation of that. So when you're playing Havoc, this is going to have some variation of Reckless. And Battle Brothers had the feats, right? So every Battle Brother thing had a feat. So I do think if I had more ideas on how to make that work, that would be lovely to have it back. Because that felt very nice to me. Like, that felt really cool that all the Havoc things felt related and stuff like that. I understand why those rules in particular didn't work out. But if I could have my way, yes, I would be smarter and I would find a way to make that work. That would be me having my way.
Connected design though, right? Like, you already had that in a artificial sense with demons all having the demon rule, and then there's another thing where, of course, you tie it through where you've got like the war demons or the war Havoc brothers, and also the war disciples, Havoc disciples have it, and then the Dark brothers and the Dark Prime brothers. Like, that's that connected design point. I mean, I stand firmly in the face of community feedback of saying those reckless rules were some of the best shit that I'm gonna miss. Like that
I was a big fan of the reckless rules. I was also actually a big fan of, more controversially, the rules that gave you points to spend as an army instead of on units. I think one of the things that I know that people really hated tokens and stuff like that, and I hate them as well when you have to move your minis and then remember to move all the 5 things after it. But having a dice with like 10 on it that I ticked down to 9 felt really clean to me. So I was sad to see that one go, I think. Of all the rules that
I thought those were cool as well. And
anymore.
The problem with those actually is that, like I said before, I would love to bring back some rules as part of like narrative heroes.
Yeah.
But the points rules, I think they're literally called like reckless point, no, like piercing points or something like that. The problem is those require multiple units to have them to work. And so I literally have no way of bringing that back unless something.
You could do a new one of being like, you could have narrative heroes bring in 5 points that you can spend throughout the game. But
yes, like that, it could work. It's kind of like tags, right? Where you could have a tag 2 or tag 5. You know?
I like that. I really like, so there are some narrative heroes now that I look at and I'm like, that is a really cool way of getting something in there that isn't now. We were talking about the High Elf Fleets one earlier today with the Orbital Bombardment. Like, it was because someone in the UK Discord said, oh, you know what, I'd love there to be an Orbital Bombardment rule. And I went, I have an answer for you right there. Here's this character. I can't remember that character's name. But I really like the narrative heroes as a way of deploying literally unique rules on a unique model, and having it run out that way. It's cool. It's fun.
In terms of design space as well, one thing that OPR doesn't have is it has like army wides in that every unit has the rule, but it doesn't have rules that apply to the army. So, for example, I mean, we spoke about before this idea that, like, you know, demons have ambush, and at the start of the game, if you're playing demons, you put down 3 portals and you can ambush near them, right? But that's not something that is tied to the cost of the units anymore, right? I guess that's a bad example because you'd have to give them ambush and you can account for it there. But OPR doesn't have that, right? OPR has rules on units, and that's what unifies them. But this idea that you could give heroes things that have like a stack of points gives you that ability to almost do that in reverse without it being tied to the whole thing. But I guess also with narrative heroes especially, right? Because you can guarantee there's only one of them in an army because of the unique rule, right? So you can there's actually a load of crazy stuff you could do with narrative heroes that maybe is a way of reintroducing these rules that got poo-pooed, like you said. But even more extreme.
I like the idea. It's tough also because, I mean, I think there's a lot of these let's say crazier ideas that I do think maybe in a different if they had been introduced in a different context, they would have had a different reaction. Like, if once a year at some point in a quarterly update, you know, Havoc got an icon that allowed them to do a reckless thing, right? I think it would have had a very different reaction than, hey, here is your army-wide rule for your 5 armies.
I think the opt-in thing's huge, right? Like, one of the things, early days, Dark Elf Raiders had this whole harassing thing going on where all their transports lost fast and very fast. And so they felt really bad because it was like, well, harassing is useless to me, but I have harassing. And then when they got given fast, all of a sudden harassing was fine. And you can always do that in reverse, right? You go like, well, if none of the melee units want harassing, give it as an upgrade to the ranged units because they'll really appreciate it. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we never had any problem with harassing. We just didn't want it on everything. So I guess that's the real issue with army wides.
I'm going to tell you something,
force them like that.
Spoilers, but going in your direction, is so there is going to be the weapons rework. I'm calling it the weapons rework, whatever, for next year. And as part of the weapons rework, although then there's going to be an even bigger effort further in the future. I want to tackle, of course, hybrid units, because I think that's one of those like thorns in our side since forever, really, since the beginning of time. As part of that, I think what's going to happen is I need to figure out exactly how I'm going to make it work, but I'm going to basically split the army-wide rules where necessary into 2 versions of them. I think we had spoken about this a long time ago, where, for example, like, instead of there being just the sisters, instead of just having devout, you would have devout, and then you would have do you remember we had a name for it, Dave? We spoke about this months ago. There was a different name for the other one, pious. I don't know.
I think when we spoke about it, you were talking about I think Pius came after we discussed the rule.
Maybe. Whatever. But the point is, like, imagine there would be essentially like the melee devout, and then there would be the ranged devout, and then the ranged units get the ranged devout and the melee. So basically, even that little point cost saving of your A1 attack is not calculated with devout, like you're getting that.
We spoke about it on the Fanatics, and I think that was almost the point just before you then made devout into the everything conditional charge and shoot thing. That was where I think it was. It was about talking about them, but yeah, it was at that point that you were looking at doing the split, and I think that was one of the things that I remember seeing the next step when you mentioned it to me of being the like +1 when shooting at this point or charging in 6. That was when we saw that. But that's interesting. So the idea would be then to maybe take another look at the units and the armies and the way the armies are constructed, and then pull it apart and further specialize the specialists.
Yes, and essentially like I mean, just to throw it out there for people that are listening, the calculator does take into account, for example, if you have a fully melee unit and you have devout on it, you're not paying some points for range that doesn't exist. No. But of course, if your unit is ranged and has a rifle and a close combat weapon, then the close combat weapon is getting its devout calculation applied, right? Yeah, so the idea, of course, is that we have ranged units and we have melee units. Melee units. And the thing is, like, what is a hybrid unit?
Yeah.
What is a hybrid unit?
This is such a, like, we take the time and discuss this, right? Because, so the hybrid problem, we don't see as much of a problem. I see it as a problem when, well, yeah. See, this is it, right? Like, this isn't a lot of people go hybrid bad out.
Yeah, because like, I think what people do is hybrid means one of the weapons is useless, as opposed to one of the weapons is conditional, right? Which I think is a huge thing, right? People often go like pistols. Why would I ever want to use that? I can charge, which is not taking considering the fact that you're playing a game. It's not always. I'm stood 12 inches away.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point, and some people see it that way. I see the hybrid problem as going, I've spent a lot of time looking at dwarves today. In Army Forge, before anyone wants to put anything in the comments, I've spent a lot of time looking at the Dwarven Army books. I know you, the people who will come into my Discord and find me. But there's one in there, I think, that is like, it's primarily a shooting unit, and it's got A2 in combat. And I look at that and I go, this unit is now... Miners? Maybe it was that.
Yeah, just dwarf miners, just to add to the whole coming to Discord thing. Dwarf miners have A2 melee weapons and shotgun.
Dave's been staring at miners today, apparently. And I look at that and I'm a bit like, that kind of, I devalue that unit somewhat now in my choice of a unit in my roster. But I do want to make sure I've made the point of going, that is also really good for the reason that Harvey said, which is like, if I'm stood on a point with my melee unit, it's where I need it to be. But I want this unit to impact the game, and suddenly, and now the points where I think it's actually good is like my Assault Brothers and Battle Brothers. Well, I can now plink something, and on round 4, if I fire at a tough 6 unit that's on 3 or 4 wounds, now I can put it onto a morale check. So it's suddenly really big.
It's interesting because... if you think about it... we actually define what a hybrid unit is in the AI rules.
Yeah.
Because the AI rules say if a unit only has melee weapons, it's a melee unit. If a unit has better ranged weapons than melee weapons, it's a ranged unit. If a unit has both melee and ranged, but the melee is better, it's a hybrid. So theoretically, a hybrid unit is a melee unit. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be, right? Because you can shoot in someone's face, right?
Yeah.
So, right, there's no minimum range on guns, right? You know, so that, it has to be a melee unit. Would you ever consider, from a calc side, just giving a discount to things then that fall underneath that category of hybrid? Or, I mean, even with the range one as well, actually, if you've got like an A1 bow and an A1 CCW, then obviously you're going to use the bow every time you get the opportunity, apart from super niche situations where you might want to trigger like a routing morale instead of a stunning morale. Would you ever go like, okay, we can look at these two. This one's clearly worth more points at the very least, so this one should get like a 25% discount?
So because of how the calculator works and because it cannot be dynamic, we cannot do that. Because the problem is, like that. Okay, that's the type of thing that works if every single time an upgrade list is made, it's made in a very particular way, and every unit is kind of. So, for example, custom armies, forget about it. It's immediately going to be exploited, not on purpose, right? But like, it's just going to break. That being said, I know this might be controversial, but the melee tax on ranged units is technically on purpose. Because we could have made a game where, rifle peeps don't have an A1 melee weapon, but the tax is on purpose because we don't want ranged units to outshine melee too much. Although nowadays I definitely think they don't, but back in the day they kind of used to. So there's a little bit of that little extra tax because, I mean, you get to stand and shoot, you get to run back and shoot, you get to do a bunch of stuff and shoot. Whereas with melee, it's like you have to, expose yourself. You have to, all
I also
that stuff.
think obviously the same thing could be achieved by making range weapons A1 more expensive, basically. But I actually think it's better to have the melee weapon there because there's definitely been times in games where a heroic ranged unit has made the charge, and the dice have happened, right, and it's been fun. Yep. So
and
I think it's
for
worth
me, it's
having
about
for that
like
state.
How it feels for the player, because like if you get charged with if your ranged units get charged, we can see it on tanks actually. Like people are very upset that their tanks get charged and the tanks cannot fight back, and they're like, why can I not try and roll over these guys? And of course there's a reason. Who knows? Maybe I'll change it one day. But yeah, so it's also good that your bowmen can try and stab and punch and whatever they do.
Just on the tank thing, my vote for the solution is reverse fear. So reducing the number of wounds that count as the moment taken instead of increasing. So that if I had like reverse fear 3 and I took 3 wounds in melee, it would count as 0 on a drawn combat, but I can't win combat by reducing the wounds they've done because I don't have a melee weapon. That's my vote. That's my vote for for how to solve tanks. Because I have
to say, reverse fear just as an idea is an interesting idea.
Just like more sturdy, stalwart kind of stuff.
Okay, but come with me into my space.
Yes.
Do you believe that if I made reverse fear and I put it on any unit, who cares? Don't you think there will be people who immediately say, "Well, this fucking sucks. I just want fear. Why would I not want to have fear, which can allow me to win combat, and I can just lose less?" Like, maybe.
I mean,
that's fair.
That is fair.
No, but the idea is good. I'm literally going to write it down. Like, the idea is great.
1,000% say that. But I think
100%. Well,
I'll go argue with them on the Opar Discord about it. I'll be like, this means you can drive your tanks forwards, okay? And tanks should be driving forwards. It's a fundamental belief in myself.
There's 2 points to that I think are really, really important. And they all come onto the banner that I will call deployment. How you deploy your design of something in a game, right? So you could piss off everybody by forcing it on the units that don't care about it. You're not, if you put this on, this is a defensive ability, right? So if you push it onto Blood Prime Brothers and Vassal Brothers, they're going to be going, well, why the fuck do I care about this? I'm charging you. That's the point where you don't care about it, and then it's a problem. But if you then gave their tanks it, with every other tank in the game, it's like you said about aircraft in some recent video somewhere. I think it was with the Chainsword guys. And you were saying, I'm not going to reduce the defense point on a single aircraft in a single army, because someone looks at an aircraft and this thing is defensive 2-up. And if you then went, in Harvey's idea, and went every single thing which currently is a A0 impact 3 must have Impact X,
it's based on tough,
because it's based on tough. I'm thinking of T6 and T9 as the primary ones, but of course there are T12 plus tanks. But all of those things, if you then went, you now must have reverse fear. then people are going to go, ooh, well, this is the point where it matters, and it's forced. And then the further deployment point is then saying, and now I'm going to give you as an optional upgrade on this hero, this unit, and this one. It's that point that I think is so strong about OPR, which is so much is opt-in, but it's when you force things. And I think this is also kind of coming back in a little bit of a circle to what we've discussed about army-wide rules, of some people are going, you have forced this on my army, like harassing in Dark Elves or something, and they're going, I don't want it on my... Harvey, what unit don't you want harassing on in Dark Elf Raiders? I don't know, you care way more about the Dark Elves.
All of them, but no. I don't want it on my light skimmer, Dave.
On your light skimmer. There
I don't
you
want
go.
it on my light skimmer.
If you don't, like, it's the people who'll see it and they don't want it on specific things that they'll be like, oh, but as an optional upgrade, cool, I'm not going to take that. That's the point where I think that you piss off the fewest people.
You know, okay, here's an interesting thing. Again, we're talking about design. Okay. Here is how my mind works, right? I'm always trying to make things simpler. So, for example, we talked about like impact, and tanks have impact, right? We know that they have impact, and you know, you can charge, but then when you get charged, nothing happens. And then you said, well, it would be an interesting thing to have reverse fear, which, by the way, I wrote it down. It's actually a great idea. I'm not sure where it's gonna work, but I'm gonna find a way to make it work. Again, could be a thing for a narrative hero, right? Which is very cool. Okay,
Artillery.
but now we're starting to complicate things because we're creating a rule specifically for this. And you know what I was thinking, and I had thought about this already before, and now you reminded me, is like, what if instead of impact, they had a tread attack, whatever, and it's A3 with thrust, which is lance, right? Which is +1 to hit when you, and AP +1. So then when you're doing your tank shock, you do get a bonus, and it feels like an impact, right? So now it's an impacted, but when you get charged, you do get your little A3 or whatever it might be, and now players stop complaining that they don't have a strike back. So you see, like, I'm trying to think about like what's the minimal problem, like what's yes, but it would be much cheaper than impact. But like, what's the least friction I can use to make the idea work? You know.
I mean, I totally agree with that, right? I think like there's a lot of difficulty around simplifying the game, but also having engaging enough mechanics. Like impact sounds cool in theory, right, for tanks, but actually, if it's meaning that every time someone gets charged, they go like, "Why the fuck do I take a tank when a walker is the same points but has fear 3?" Then it's probably time to revisit it.
Also, like one of the things is a lot of the, OPR, and I say OPR, but I mean the games, right? Like they're all built on iterations and iterations and iterations, right? So in many ways, tanks are the way they are now because back when I designed the whole idea of like, okay, a tank is a thing with impact and tough and this, there was no such thing as lance or thrust. They're now called thrust rule. I didn't have it. I didn't know it. It didn't exist, right? And so for me, so now over time, as new things go into the calculator and into the system, I'm like, ooh, I can actually, now I have new tools to work. So for example, I can give you one that like I hope I can implement it as part of the beta, but I have a problem, which is the sniper rule. What is the problem with the sniper rule? It's a bit awkward because truly the sniper rule is made of two parts. It's reliable, which is quality 2 up, and then it's pick a target and whatever. So now we have to do a whole thing where, for example, when you have skirmish, you have to take the weapon, you have to subtract sniper, you have to add reliable, right? You have to do this whole thing. And sniper is a rule that works for shooting. And so again, like now I have a rule in my book that's kind of limited. And I realized this, and actually you can notice it already now. I started slowly implementing it. If you take a look at any unit that has an assassin, the takedown rule is now called takedown strike. Why? Because what I'm planning to implement is a takedown rule, which is the half of sniper, which is you pick the target. So a sniper will be reliable takedown, which means it's still exactly the same, but now I can isolate takedown and I can put it on a melee weapon.
Okay.
Now I can put it on different types of guns. A gun doesn't have to have, it doesn't have to be a sniper rifle and allow you to pick a target. It doesn't have to be hitting on 2 up. So again, ideas that only came years later and splitting this up and...
It's like what you do with Ethereal, where in the current edition, I don't know if you've changed this today. Has it been changed today?
Yeah, it's been changed today.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it was gains slow and teleport, and now it's gains -6, -6 and teleport.
Yeah.
Yes.
Harvey's been yelling this at
very
me
good
for...
idea. I have to say, very good idea. Like again, I was approaching it from how few new rules do I have to teach you? So I say slow and teleport, you know them. But then you're right. Actually, like, not everybody knows teleport. So maybe they can learn -6, -6.
Well, yeah, you can couch rules though, because if sniper becomes gains takedown and reliable, then you've bundled it into a single thing that works really well. And again, praising our best friend Adam, Adam Forge, where you've got the reminder text now in Army Forge where it says gains slow and whatever. You've now got that little pop up at the bottom. So I think that little couching maneuver is
that
something that's
pop
really
up.
Good.
I feel like changed everything.
Yeah,
like,
it was huge.
Holy shit! Like it was huge. We were like, just put a thing, and it's like it's a tooltip, and it's like, oh wow! Like I use it so much. Like it's crazy. It's crazy.
I mean, especially with the
really
beta, right? Where there's like a whole new collection of rules, right? Like it's enormous for that, right?
Yeah.
People are like trying to learn so much about the game all at once, and now they can just hover over and see everything they care about.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that and putting it into spell lists as well. Just beautiful.
Huge.
Beautiful. It's been really good. But it's interesting because I would have expected this whole process to have, like, I mean, has it changed how I would expect this whole process to change how you want to develop your design cycles? Like, I appreciate you do what I think is a good thing, which is core rules updated once a year, very few changes. You've said before you feel it's very stable, quarterly passes and patches. But like, I'm going to ask two questions here. One would be like, I would have thought, and do you think it would be a good idea that when you're producing your narrative campaigns, that's a good opportunity to take 4 factions and revisit them? Like, I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are on that. Because Void Sun Threat, for example, we've got Plague Demons, High Elf Fleets, Jackals, and Lizards. That would be a great opportunity to rework some of the units in there that are perhaps stuck in a version 2 edition, and give you the opportunity to go, right, well, they've come on to now I'm trying to remember the full narrative of the Void Sun Threat. They've come into the system where you've got this one dying star and you've got this breakaway Saurian faction. There we go. Am I remembering Void Sun Threat now?
Yeah, you are.
And because of the breakaway, they have developed a new unit style. There we go. And now I'm going to have the Void Sun Gators. Like, that is an opportunity there. So I would have thought that would be quite a nice idea for you to do that, with the benefit of then having only 4 units that you're pushing on the players and saying, 4 armies and going, this is our change, not 50. But like, that also is a lot of change and it's a lot of work for you. Like, why don't you do it that way?
So, okay, just to recap the question. So why don't we update the armies, for example, in combination with a new narrative campaign?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not really the scope of that project, you know? The focus of those projects is on the narrative and the heroes and the minis. And I do wonder, actually, if a rework would kind of, like, detract from that, because then everybody's just talking about that and not... For example, like, I actually wonder how much the mental space is being used up by the beta when Broken Truth is this huge thing that just came out, right? So, well, anyway, but also, like, I don't know that then it would become an expectation, and then I would feel forced to update armies just because. It's an interesting idea. Like, I know that for sure. Like, look, at the end of the day, we are running a business, right? And I know that for sure, if with every campaign we released not just like 4 heroes, but like a new unit per army, I know that it would be very appreciated and people would pay for it, and great, we could make money, and sure. But I don't want to have a business decision blow up my game and mess up all this, because like this is and we can see with the beta, it's like a very fine balance to make a game work, and to make a game work that is simple and that is easily accessible and has all these, you know, design principles and goals. And, you know, OPR is popular for a reason, and I mean, we can see with the beginning of the beta, like you fuck with that a little bit too much, and like you completely are a different thing, right? Because like I actually, okay, one thing that I find interesting is I hope that people that saw the beginning of the beta can now understand that, like, if we wanted to, OPR could be as complex as anything else, right? The complexity, the level of complexity is a choice. It's not but I'm too dumb to do it, or we don't understand, or no, it's completely a choice. But yes, I don't know that I would want to update the armies as part of that. To your previous question, which is like, what about the update cycle and like how has this process influenced it? So what I want to test out, I've spoken about this a little bit before, but what I want to test out is basically, I would like to, when this beta is over, we're going to shut down the beta Army Forge. You're not going to be able to access it anymore. But I have something that is the alpha. That's where I usually work. So the way it happens is like, I work on the alpha and then I push it to beta. And then eventually, actually, that gets pushed to something called staging, and that's the last point before it gets pushed to live. Like, there's a four, whatever.
Your platforms before you push a patch.
Yes, there's 4 steps before we get to the final live. Anyway, and so what I would like to try is take the alpha version and make that open to maybe patrons, like patrons only. And I actually have a little section for patrons in Discord, which is called like Tano's Design Corner, where I share stuff. And so what I would like to try is have a really long extended like alpha for whatever it is. Like, hey, come check it out, watch what I'm doing for the next 6 months, and I update it and I let you know, and you can see it, and then get that feedback that helps me guide things, and then eventually be like, okay, we are 3 months out from September, let's do a beta. Also, one thing, and I think it was very, very helpful that we did this beta that was like 2 months long, and we're only 1 month in, by the way. We're halfway through, which it feels like it's been forever. But for example, like the next beta, I'm not sure that it will make sense for it to be this long. So maybe we'll make like a beta that starts sooner, and we start with the idea of, okay, it's going to be a 1 month beta, and then it shuts down. But then if we want to, we can extend it, and we have that option. So that's kind of like how it's changing my design process. So full disclosure, so I had a small feedback crew, and actually these boys were part of the feedback crew for a while, which is very nice. And one of the things that, and one of the things that we learned. 3 weeks. Hey, listen, you were around.
I was around.
One of the things that I learned with the feedback crew is like it's very cool to have a group of people that help you and but it's a very small group. And then when you have a community this big, it becomes a small echo chamber of like, okay, we watch this thing grow, we watch this thing, and so we came to beta, and like we all had our reservations with different parts of the design, but all in all, I don't think anyone thought that it would blow up the way it blew up, and so I think having more eyes on it.
I mean, like, sorry, okay. I haven't discussed this. Like, I mentioned it to a few people in the UK who knew about this, so that Harvey and I were in this, but we haven't discussed this on YouTube. And I think, fair enough. Full and frank disclosure to the people on YouTube. Tano has spoken about his feedback crew. Harvey and I were in it. Harvey dropped out after a few weeks for personal reasons, and I continued to the very end, to the shutdown day, giving silly reacts and starting to get to the point of throwing memes at Tano. When Tano joined in with the don't think just charge mantra of bin it, I had such a good day at that point. That was
bin. Everything is bin.
Everything I think Tano actually, like, from a nice personal point, that was the point where I think I got to know you the best, because you just started being like, you had so much fucking sass. It was great. So full disclosure for viewers at home that we were in that. I was gobsmacked by the reaction of the community when beta went, because and I look back now and I'm like, all the points you're saying I think are entirely valid. It was incredibly complex, but it was a complexity that we got to know over the course of the months that it was rolled out.
Makes a big difference, right?
It really makes it was familiarity. I was so used to it.
What's the boiler? What is it?
Boiler frog.
Boiler frog thing?
You boil a frog slowly, I was a slowly boiled frog, right? So I was nice and cooked. And then it came out and everyone was like, what is going on? And I was genuinely like, I felt like in my own personal communities, I was putting out fires like, it's not that bad. What the hell is going on? And I realized that, like, I'm the exception because I'm used to it. So I was really shocked by that. But now I look at, like, I listen to your dialogue now about how you understand that it was a very focused community, and it was a very focused group. And at the end, you were repeating points in response to our feedback, which was, I now feel like I am pandering to the desires and wishes of very few people, which is 100% the case at this point. It's just so, it was so interesting to see something that I was so sure had so many finished points to it just pretty much be tipped on its head now. And so that's kind of like, go on.
Sorry. I also think, like, I mean, so not to bring it up, my favorite thing in the world, but undead as a rule obviously was very controversial.
Yes.
And you had a collection of people who all believed undead was overpowered, right? So in itself, right, that already doesn't represent like the 50% of the community that doesn't maybe understand the strength of certain rules. So when things hit live, people look at them and go like, that's really bad, or that's too good. And they may be wrong about it, but it doesn't matter because it's that gut thing you've been speaking about, right? That gut reaction to something that informs whether or not someone keeps playing the game.
Yeah.
You know, like
that is so
me and
big.
Dave spoke a while ago about, you know, if in wounds in games, I think Warhammer's got this thing where, like, if you do extra wounds, they don't roll over or
Spilling.
something.
Oh God, we spoke. We didn't
we
just
spent
speak, we
like a
battled.
month or 2 months talking about this one thing, right? And Dave was so against spilling, and I'm, as not a Warhammer guy, had literally no idea what he was talking about. And it's that, right? Like, if you're from a different stance, a different like point of view, it completely changes how you react to things.
Yeah.
And regardless whether you're right or wrong or not, outrage is bad. So
yeah, it just is incredible. So like, kind of also that kind of brings me on to my next point of, are there any changes in your full development process? I mean, I'm also really mindful. One of the things that I have had quite a few people ask me is, who else is helping Tano? And I was like,
nobody. I am alone.
A couple of
Yeah,
other guys.
Yeah.
I was like, and at the same time, because one of the things through that alpha, through the feedback crew process, and it was a bit of a meme for a while, is the points weren't final. Like there was one point where you changed caster and you changed some spells, and you got so many responses of, are the points right on this, that you changed caster point cost to be 100,000 points, I think, just to shut the points up, which was hilarious. I don't know if you remember this, but I was chuckling. Every caster changed to like 100,000 points, I think.
Yes.
But it was that point of people were asking, like, because people had noticed that my tag on Discord had feedback crew. And it was one really observant person who said, "Oh, I saw you commented the other day in the Patreon chat. What's feedback crew?" And I went, "This is something like not trying to platform myself on. I just like had it." And I told him, and he was like, "Oh, brilliant! So who else is in Tano's development team?" And I was like, "That guy deals with a lot of shit." So it's that sort of point that I'm thinking, like, has this whole process and the size of the game changed your approach on that? I mean, we don't know what happens too much behind the screen. Do you actually have like 3 friends who you really grill down with and play?
Not at all. Nowadays, no. So there actually used to be a time where there were a bunch of people that like I used to play with and stuff like that. But you know, things shifted and whatever. We used to actually use Roll20 a lot, do a bunch of tests.
I love Roll20.
But now, really, and especially now with the beta, it's almost like I remembered that the community is truly my partner, you know, and it always has been. And it's interesting because I feel like now looking back, I feel like what happened is at the beginning the community was small. So what is happening right now in the beta process? This was my day-to-day. Always, not at this scale, you know, but this was my day-to-day. Like, people would talk to me and I would check out like the Grimdark chats, for example, and be like, oh, okay, cool, like, what's this and whatever, right? And then the community started getting too big, and then I started having so I created that channel for the balanced feedback channel, and it was kind of like open, hey, just post whatever. And then it got a bit too big for that, and so then it started having more harsh rules. And basically, like, what I realized is, like, slowly, because of the scale of the community, I had to find a way to adapt to receive feedback in a way that works. And in a way, I was listening to the community, but there wasn't as close of a direct, like what I'm going through right now, amazing because it's like it's the closest I can be with the community. It's literally just like I'm telling you what I feel, well, or what I think. You're telling me what you feel. I tell you what I think. And it's just like with hundreds of people at the same time. So I think this process is very cool, and I want to change to include this more in my regular development cycle. And essentially, like everybody becomes my feedback crew. Like everybody that wants to be involved and whatever, and have like a really wide and large feedback crew. That's why I have like the game design channel now, right?
Yeah.
Where you can go there and talk about game design, ideally related to OPR, but you can talk about whatever thing if you want. But in terms of like process in the background, like it's just me, notepad, writing a lot of things in notepad, every now and then Excel, any dice. My God,
Any
like
dice,
that thing
yeah,
is
love any
like,
dice.
woo!
Love any dice.
Yeah, use that thing for 10 years now. So yeah, any dice for sure. Every now and then Roll20 to do like some quick play tests. But most of the time, really, it's just like me sitting down, thinking, a lot of thinking, going for a walk, and just thinking about like how the fuck do I, and then writing notes like quickly on my phone, like don't forget this quickly. And then when I get home, I sift through my notes, I transfer them to the PC, and then slowly implement and stuff like that. That's the process.
You need a voice note like recorder and transcriber. That's what you need.
Oh, I don't.
You need a WhatsApp group chat. That's what you need.
So this is what I was going to say.
That's the way we do it. Yeah.
No, so we do everything by like WhatsApp voice note. Like we will, I said this to Harvey the other day because we were talking about like we plan videos, we plan things like just like personal things, but also like a load of game kind of behind the don't think just charge scenes of the things that Harvey and I talk about, and we talk about game design a lot because we fucking love it, and like we will just go on walks. Harvey loves a lunchtime walk. I have dogs. I love taking my dogs for a walk, and I'll start out listening to an audiobook or a podcast or usually like fucking shout out to the likes of like Good Enough Gaming, and I can't go a single video without saying I love Warboss Fits because I'll listen to these videos, right, and I could be not listening to a damn word, but they'll say something and it'll make me think, fuck, what about this, right? And like the beta whole process has been just building voice note libraries for me and Harvey, and it's that like we have each other to talk to about this sort of shit. Even obviously it goes no further than our own heads or like I don't think just charge video, but like it's that point of going, fuck, does Tano have a voice chat? Does he have a group chat somewhere? Because that guy needs a fucking group chat.
I would go mental if I couldn't just spew into a voice note every day.
Yeah.
But okay, let me tell you something, because you're talking about like how you're watching, for instance, you're watching them play and it's like, oh, I have an idea, like, or you're listening to them play and they say something and you have an idea and then you share and whatever. I'm gonna throw this out there for you guys, but also for anybody that's part of the beta feedback thing, and just generally, this is a thing I learned years ago. Is it's very easy, especially when you are in this process of like active development, like the beta right now, where and this used to happen to me all the time, where it's like you play a match, and then based on that match, you think a bunch of things, and you make a bunch of decisions, and basically you adjust the game, and every single match you keep adjusting the game, because you think, oh, I learned something relevant here, and the truth is, one match is one match.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to do way more, because I can see it in the feedback that we get, where it's like, okay, play that game, Hio Fleets versus Eternal Dynasty. This and this happened. Oh yeah, you need to change this, and this. And I'm like, do I? Like, I understand that's how it went in your game, and now you feel like, oh, this rule is absolutely overpowered. But it's like, but there is more context. So I think discussion is actually very important before making a decision.
Yeah, I think the hardest part about giving any sort of feedback is recognizing whether or not the feedback you're giving is actually to do with the changes. Right? Like I played a game with Ratman or whatever, and I got absolutely stomped. Did any of the new changes have any impact on that game whatsoever, or was I going to lose that game anyway? Right? Like, is my opponent just better than me? Right? The one thing that we say all the time on this channel is OPR, despite it being a dice game, I win most of my games off being better. Yeah, being better than my opponent, right? And you can see it when we go to game days and we win like game after game after game after game after game. If it was a dice game, we'd lose 20% of them automatically, right? And we don't. So you've really got to factor that into your feedback, and it's not an easy thing to factor in, is it? Going like, oh, actually, I was just worse than my opponent, but I got really annoyed when he rolled 2 6s with his new army wide.
This is also why, like, I ask about what's your process, not just for how's Tano's mental well-being, does he have a group chat to send his voice notes to, but also, like, and this isn't a criticism, though some people might level it as this. How many games have you played? Like, and don't answer that question. Sure. But it's that sort
like
of
in
thing.
My life?
Just saying, like, in the past 6 weeks, because it's that point of, like, do you have the support structure? And so that's what I'm wondering about it. And, like, that's what it sounds like when you're talking about. You haven't said the buzzword. Like, when you're talking about Army Forge Labs, you've said it on stream.
Yes.
You haven't said it in this one. I don't know. I was waiting for you to say labs.
I said alpha. It's the same
alpha.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
alpha
your
and labs are the
alpha.
same thing.
That sounds like you're going to take the steps towards that, to getting the repeated churn playtesting out of it. So that's kind of what I'm wondering about there, because at the same time, your game has exploded. Like, it's gone fucking wild. Yes. So I just wonder how many times you get to sit down and roll dice in a day, because it can't be that much.
So I have to say, it's true that, like, by now the game is so big and the experience is so big, and also not everybody is going to play the way that I play. Yeah, and that is a big bias. And I have to say that playtesting, there are certain things that I can get out of playtesting that I cannot get otherwise. Like, there's lots of things that by now I know these games off by heart. I know every unit, I know every army. I made it all. It's been 10 years, so I know, hey, if I change this, it's gonna feel like this. Great. But there are some things that are purely like a feels thing that you have to be on the table to feel it. But there's a lot of stuff that maybe back in the day I would have play tested for, like, balance, which now I'm like, I cannot be play testing this myself. It doesn't make sense. No. It has to go out there, and I have to get the reaction of, like, 50 people. It cannot be just me playing, a match against the AI or against myself. So a lot of times if I'm doing playtesting, again, it's about feel. A lot of it is about feel, especially like when I'm playtesting something like Quest. It's a lot about feel, especially because it's a co-op game. And a lot of times it's just about, like, does this mechanic make sense the way it's written? And does going through this sequence of steps have any problems that I did not foresee when I wrote it down? Right? So it's like, I don't know. I thought this was good. Like, I'm thinking about it. I've changed it now, but whatever. This is something that's going to change. But you have some weapons, some of the new weapon special rules that are like, if you roll a 6 and that hit is unblocked, it deals 1 extra wound, right?
Yeah.
Which on paper, it's like, easy, whatever. And then you go and play it, and then you're like, okay, I rolled a 6, and my weapon had Relentless, and it had Blast, and now, okay, wait, and I need to do this, and this, and this. Okay, and I roll, and so, okay, I'm splitting this rolls, and it's like, on paper, it was like a simple thing. It's like, but then when you play it, it's like, this actually feels much more clunky than it was supposed to be. And so those things, you need to literally test, like, what is it like to have to go through the mechanics,
right? Like, you and I spoke about this. Now we're talking about Feedback Crew. You and I had a conversation in late Feedback Crew about a slow debuff, and I am very passionate that is something that could be really powerful. And you didn't agree with me, and we disagreed. But that was something that is just like, neither of us could express, because we hadn't played a game against each other. And so that's that source of, you need to experience it. And we could have played a game against each other. And this is your other point, right? That we could have played one game and it could have sucked. And you could have been like, Dave, you're full of shit. And I could be like, no, I promise you, I'm not full of shit. And like, it's just so hard to do. And then that could be us focusing on one thing, that because we're both, we've played the game a couple of times between us, I think. We've each played the game once or twice, we know it. But this could be a really minor nuance, and this is your point about the Feedback Crew, that two guys just rolling dice in the garage don't give a shit about. Like, I don't know. For me, Warboss Fitz captures that shit just so well. Like, literally just two guys. Yeah, you can't not big him up. Like, the guy's a fucking saint. Like, it's him and his brother-in-law rolling dice in a garage, and they've got that vibe. And I bet, I haven't had this chat with him, but I bet if I sat down and had a discussion about the things in beta that I think are going to be, like, really bad or really good, he'd be like, what the fuck are you on about? We played this and it was fine. Like, it's just completely different.
And also, that's important anyway, right? Like, the fact that list building is a thing people do when they're not playing the game goes to show that how wrong and right you can be about things off instinct alone, right?
Yeah.
Because if we sat down and each made the best version of the Orc Marauders list we could do right now, we'd come up with 3 different lists, right? And that's based on what we think is good and what we think is bad. And one of them would be factually better, right? But there's literally no way of knowing that until we played 100 games with each list. You could actually go and do that and sit down and do that research, and it wouldn't matter, right? You could play 1,000 games and it wouldn't matter, right? Because at the end of the day, you just have to go off what feels right and feels wrong, right? So it doesn't matter if things are overpowered, if they feel oppressive to play against, because you don't want that kind of emotional reaction from players as they're playing.
Yeah.
So.
We've seen a lot of emotional reactions. We've had
and the
them
context
ourselves,
matters, right? Like,
context matters.
The different table, the different enemy, different army, different units.
Terrain.
Yeah, like it changes everything. Where are you placing the objectives, right? Like, oh, this objective marker was 3 inches closer to your deployment zone. I lost the game automatically. I didn't lose, whatever. You know, like it could have changed everything. And also one of the big things is that I think it's very easy for every one of us to assume that everybody else plays the way we play.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
people play completely different. Like there are people that like we assume everybody uses Force Orc. Lots of people don't use Force Orc. Lots of people mix 1,000. Like I saw somebody talk about this the other day where like they were saying like, oh yeah, like the way that I build my army list is I just go through every army and I pick what I want, and then I have my toys, and then I just make something cool. And it's here's an elf, and here's a thing, and here's another thing, and it's just I wanted these units, and I made it. And I'm like, go ahead. Like maybe that's not what the standard intended experience is, but that's how people play. And
you don't want to tell people to not play this game in a way that they enjoy. What you want to say is, fuck me, fuck what I think. Go play the game what you want to do, right?
100%.
I'm always completely blindsided every time someone mentions merging armies. And when they go like, oh, they send me a list. They like, can you improve this list for me? And they have like 600 points of goblins in their list, and I'm like, whoa, what? I'm not emotionally ready to do this feedback at all. Like that needs to go. Okay, you need to give me the thing I'm used to.
Give me my pure crap.
Yeah, I don't want to see any high elves hanging out with any goblins whatsoever. Okay, immediately scrap that.
Well, I have a question for you guys.
Yeah.
I know you weren't there. I was at Adepticon this year actually in March. Oh, by the way, I met Warboss Fitz live.
Yeah.
Amazing. What an experience. He is, by the way, I'm not very tall. I'm Italian. He is tall. He's a mountain. What a man. And he's so sweet. Incredible. Anyway, and we ran a tournament there. And Giants, which supposedly are one of the worst armies out there, actually were like doing extremely well. And I kind of wanted to know your guys' thoughts. Not even about like how we changed the Giants in beta, although we can talk about that. It's like why is there this disconnect? Where, or for you, where do you think this disconnect comes from? Because I have my theories, but I want to hear other people.
So the reason why Giants did well at that event was 2 reasons. One, it was 2,000 points, and the other thing is it was mixed GDF AOF, and in a mixed format, AOF always comes out on top because GDF have expensive costs per wound they can deal, because they pay more for their stats. So AOF just has an amount of wounds that GDF finds it really difficult to break through, whereas AOF tends to be lower to the ground. So Giants in that, I think they managed to field like 8 or 9 Giants or something like that, which is, or maybe
I thought it was 6.
7 plus or something.
I think it was 6.
I thought it was 6.
Either way, so more than they can field in AOF is the point,
more
right? In AOF, they would be fielding 4 or 5, and that's not enough for the number of objectives on the board.
Yeah.
Whereas when you get more points, the objectives would change.
Shortcut Harvey's point there, activations to objective ratio is the answer. And this is the same with, and it's at the standard point level for the game. So it's the same with Titan Lords at 2k as Giants at 1500, that you will get 4 or 5 Giants in your standard game. You'll get 3 or 4 Titans pre-beta in your standard GDF game. But bringing in cheaper alternatives, which you're looking at in beta, is going to be a way of solving that problem. I've done this a lot, but it's like it's one way of addressing one of the shortcomings of the armies, and it's why they did well at 2K. We think.
One of the big problems that Giants have is melee can only affect 1 unit at a time. So if you have your 4 Giants and they have 10 activations, to be able to even contest the objectives, you need to be killing like at least a whole unit every single round. And if you let one run away, or you can't quite do that, or one of your activations goes to waste, all of a sudden you just don't have enough firepower to stop them from decapping the points you're stood on. And by then you will have lost one giant at least, and then they can capture that point. And there's no way of distributing yourself properly, and especially if there's difficult terrain kicking around. And yeah, like they're very easy to play around in a way that leaves them kind of high and dry.
There's also that thing that was like part of the swarms issue, which is my 50-point unit of halflings can contest an objective as well as your 500-point giant. And if you haven't wiped out that unit or like shaken them at the right time or routed them, they're still going to do it. And it's really easy to save a unit in that sort of scale of game and decap a point if you're playing it that way. But like, yeah, so that's our view on it.
You also have the deployment disadvantage, right? You put down your 4 giants and they put down their 4 worst units, and then they go like, okay, I'm now going to put literally everything on the left flank, and you have 2 giants there, and I have like 1,500 points versus your 2 giants, and they're going to just die without doing anything, and then all of a sudden you win the game off that. So I think, I think unfortunately for like Giants, Titan Lord stuff, they're playing in an alternate activation game, and if it wasn't alternate activations, they'd probably be better off, but the fact that it is means that having low activation counts is just such a disadvantage, and in one that can't be fixed by tactical delay. I don't think either. I think tactical delay definitely helps, but it's not like now we don't have that problem anymore.
Okay, so thoughts on the new changes for the 2 armies?
I mean, I would like to see some tough 9 stuff in there.
Yes, that's really it. I'm sorry, Tano. I appreciate that you've had this feedback a lot, and we are repeating it. I think the tough 6 things are a really big step in that direction. And then on top of that, you've reworked the way that all of those units are built. And there's some really sweet thematic things there, like pushing the envelope on giving the individual ones caster. So now I can have an army of entirely casting giants, which is just fucking cool. Those help. I think that the tough 6 things help, but there is definitely now a dissonance on the way that list should be built. Like, why have I got peasant titans in my Titan Lords who are the ultra rich and wealthy? Why are there literal peasants here? Like, there's multiple layers of dissonance and disconnect there on the tough 6 aspects, and I really think tough 9 is a really good, is the midpoint. So it's a really good balance between the tough 6 and the tough 12. We also have our own view that Tough 9 is secretly one of the best tough brackets for a single model in the game. But I can't even articulate why, but it is sweet, and it doesn't feel too strong. It doesn't feel too expensive. They die, so it doesn't feel oppressive for your opponent. Like, your opponent can't just ignore it, but at the same time, if your opponent pays attention to it, there's like strategic tension and drive through the game. I think that if you brought in... If we're sitting in the happy balance now, if you've got these 2 tough 6 units in each one, if they had tough plus 3 upgrades, is there 2, sorry, in each one? But there is at least...
One in
each army has 1 tough 6 unit. If they had tough plus 3 upgrades that you could do, then that's one way of making it that people aren't wondering, why am I bringing, a 50 mil model in my Giants army? But you are giving them an opportunity to bring a few more, just guessing in that 1 or 2 extra units in a standard game army that they can then contest the points. And it's not an issue you see at 3K Grimdark Future and 2K Age of Fantasy Plus, because the maximum number of objectives in a game is 5. And so if in those games you've got 6, 7 big things, Titans and Giants, you lose 1 or 2, you're still able to contest all 5 objectives. But it's when it's lower and you're playing at fewer activations than there are maximum objectives on the board, then you really start to feel the pain and the strain. And so Tough 9 is what I think Harvey and I both agree is the solution to that one.
I agree with Dave as well. I think that the Tough 6 with a Tough 3 upgrade would be the best case, because you want to be able to give them some options, but you don't want to give them a tough 6 and a tough 9, and then it ends up being the tough 6, tough 9 army, because you just want to get as many activations on the board as possible. You do still want to limit that via Force Org. And I think also just like from a list building standpoint, when you have really, really expensive units, their upgrades are really expensive. So there are way less permutations of lists you can actually build to these things. Because if you're like, I want at least 4 activations, you go like, okay, I like the cheapest ones, 4 of those, and then it's like, well, what points do I actually have left now? Like, if I added one of the 700 point ones, I think there's probably only like 4 lists I could have built ever, because the upgrades are so expensive. Like stealth could be like 80 points or something, right?
Here's the thing. This raises a question for me. By the way, I'm opening the thing right now. I can check it out live. So let's say the half giant was tough 9.
Oh yeah, run the calcs. Let's do this.
Yeah, I can do it. I can do it on the fly. It is now. So hold on, wait. Pre my change right now, it is giant tribes. There we go. So it's 135 points, tough 6, and then it has 8 attacks, right?
Yep. All no AP, right?
Yeah, these are the standard no AP, except for the stomp, but yes. If I upgrade it, it becomes 195 points. It is now 60 points more expensive, right?
That's just tough.
Sorry?
That's just tough before you've done the attacks?
No, I've added tough and 3 attacks.
Okay.
Because, I'm trying to get there. Although, actually, right now, well, yes, sure. So my question is, well, I don't know. The big
Can I
thing
repeat
for
this
me...
back to you to make sure I'm understanding? 190. If I repeat this back to you to make sure I'm understanding correctly, 190 points gets you a tough 9, 4-3. With is this going to be 8?
Attacks.
So yeah, 7 attacks, AP, nothing.
9 plus 2.
9 plus 2.
Okay.
So wow. Okay.
Well, no, actually, it would become 9 plus 3. It would be 12.
So this is going to be 190 points for a tough 9, 4-3, 3 attacks, AP 1, 9 attacks, AP nothing.
Wait. Now you're making me build it. Give me a second.
Because that's going to be
I have to change the
I think that'd be
song.
more expensive.
That's got to be 270 points.
No, 270 is too many.
Fearless and Fear.
200 points.
200 points.
Yeah, it's a 4-3 stomp, A3 AP1, 3 times heavy fist. It would then be adapted, of course, but whatever.
Yeah.
3 times heavy fist for A3. Well, A3 each. Fear, fearless, tough 9, unmovable, which is
Their current
steadfast.
rule.
Anything, yeah.
Yeah, it's 200 points.
I'd eat that up.
Right, but here's my question. When you then have this option in your army, right? And then the next option, the tough 12, is 300 points. It's 100 points more, right? Which does raise the question, why is it that much more expensive? Well, it has a lot more stuff. It has more AP. It has
Furious, more fear. Yeah.
It has... Oh, it also has Furious. That's why it has built-in Furious. Whatever. At that point, would you ever really pick the 300 points option?
Yeah. Do you know why?
Why?
Because I might have the toys to use it. And to use your own words against you,
giants.
OPR is a game where I can bring any toy that I have and put it on the battlefield.
It's just like, from my perspective, it's like, I like the idea of doing a tough 9, and I have been thinking about it for a while, because the biggest thing that I can agree with is it does feel a little weird that the Titans army has a tough 6. Although tough 6 models theoretically are like 70 millimeters tall, so they're still pretty big, but whatever. It does feel a little but then I'm like, if there's a tough 9 and a tough 12, like, do I really even need that distinction? Do we even need that? Could we not just have stuck with the tough 12 and delete the tough 9?
So, I'm a Custodians player.
They all come down.
Love
is
bringing.
my stance. I think all the 12s go to 9s, and then I think then we're talking, right?
I also agree with this approach, but just to give you a 3.4 live thing, I'm a Custodians player. I love bringing my Master Destroyer, who's tough 9. I love bringing my Custodian Assault Walker, who's a tough 12. And then, of course, all of my Custodians, who are tough 3s, and an occasional Destroyer or Destructor, who's tough 6. I love bringing that range, and that range gives me different things to put in different places on the board to do tactically. And I get to bring some fucking cool minis, and I always change the mini I use for my Master Destroyer anyway, because I'm that guy who has that many Custodian models. Like, it's it's all of those things for me, and I don't think that if you just had access to a load of tough 9s that I would just do it and only bring those. I would still probably end up bringing at least one Drunken or Crusher Giant in my Giants list. I think that would be the way that I'd still... it wouldn't make anything redundant. I think that's what you're wondering, right? Is this going to make things irrelevant? And I don't think it will.
Like, are people just going to start building tough 6 armies? But then with tough 9, I'm like, is that then... like tough 9 kind of makes me feel like, fuck it, why do we even need it? Like we have to have 12. But there is a difference in cost, and there is a difference in for sure.
Like I don't know.
I have it in my notes for sure. It's one of those points, like the way that it works. Like I have my notes, and then like for every patch, I kind of like reorganize them, and it's one of those points that keeps getting like shoved to the bottom. Like I'll think about this, and I'll get to it later. So it's there. It's definitely there.
I think what it will do is having tough 6 and tough 9 will give you more people. Well, the base or the mini?
Well, like what's the kind of rough size for a tough 9 thing? Like that feel in my head, I'm seeing a tough 9 as a giant. But I think maybe
a giant. Well, tough 12 should be 100. Tough 6 is 70. So technically, tough 9 is 85.
Okay, so
then if you actually are you talking about a walker / robot, it's actually a little bit lower. A tough 12 is actually more like 90. A tough 6 is more like 60. But it depends.
This guy is 90 mils.
Yeah, so and I'm talking about T-pose.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That makes sense.
We both T-pose for no reason. He said T-pose, and immediately everyone's T-posing.
Immediately activated.
Yeah, so we're returning to our print settings.
Sleeper agents.
Yeah, I mean, I think, for me, it's from like a playability standpoint, I think tough 9 makes sense. I think, like, sure, you may end up feeling like, oh, they're slightly less tough than they should be, but I think the quality of life of being able to field more varied types of giants, because the problem you've got with the tough 6 one right now, and maybe turning them to a tough 9 or +3 upgrade, is you're basically taking that unit 3 times to fill out activations every single time. You're capping out on that unit as much as you can. But if all the giants were at the same toughness level, then you'd be able to pick again which ones you want and which styles you want, without feeling like you've been forced into picking the tough 6 one as it is now, or the tough 9 as it might have been. So I think, like that is the problem, right? You still want, because normal armies have, 4 different options that are tough 1, and they have 2 different options that are tough 3, and they have a couple of tough 6s, and like the second you only have like one of the cheapest thing, then it just gets picked.
Yeah, I mean, but also it is true. It is. I suppose you are talking about it from a competitive play, not necessarily tournament, but like versus play, where it's like, a lot of people just build their armies like, hey, this is vibes, and this is what I'm building.
Oh, yeah. I mean this in the, like, we take events in one of two ways. Like UK Games Expo, we both will say, right, we're here to kill, we're here to win. But like we go to other events and we're like, let's do a challenge list. Let's do a list that we've not done before, like, and do something brand new that we wouldn't have done. And I said that when in early beta, when you said, we'd like to build
the list that you think is bad and see what it's like.
Harvey's in an online event at the moment, and he was challenged by one of the guys in our community to bring at least half of his army 1,000 points of tanks, and he's done that. And it's just we enjoy playing,
which is the worst tank in the game.
But like we enjoy doing that, and so like I think we are a smaller representation of the game, but at the same time, like, we fucking love some random vibe shit. And so I think that when you said, when you originally were discussing putting in a new unit to Titan Lords early on in the beta, I was in the UK Discord fucking blasting gas. I was like, next event, I will go and find all of these random fucking Titan-sized prints, and I'm bringing a Titan army because, like, just, I don't care if they're shit, it'll be fun.
Talking about armies that were completely reworked, would you now try Human Inquisition?
Hell fucking yes. Like, I'm excited to play those guys as well. Like, I haven't looked at them in the past week.
I love I think the assassins going down to T3 was just great, right? Before they were this weird point where either because they're like 2/2s, tough 6. Some games they'd be like, people would come back and say like, they're so good, they're unkillable, they do all this stuff, right? Which isn't exactly what you want, right? You don't want something that either wins the game or loses it. You want something in the middle ground. So I think them being tough 3 is a nice little compromise. I haven't had a proper look through all the units. I saw a lot of them got kind of reworked and looked over and such. So first pass of it, I thought it looked pretty good. There might be some out there that are still a bit underwhelming, but I think that's just the nature of lists in general, right? There's always going to be some dead units.
The one, and like I wanted to come on to this in as like a next kind of point. It's talking about caster in general, but the one thing in Inquisition that has me really excited is the combination of having a caster group with a spell conduit upgrade in there. And I mentioned this early on when I first saw it. I gave feedback saying this is fucking great. Like, what lovely, what just cute, wonderful design to make you have a caster group that buffs itself. I like that. That's just, I don't know.
Not anymore.
Don't kill
Not
it.
anymore.
Please don't kill it.
No, it's already, it's already dead.
Have you read the spell conduit rule?
Oh, have you had other?
Yeah.
You've added the word
Yeah.
other. Okay,
No,
fine.
I think it was
I'll take two. I'll take two. I don't care. I'll take two.
from
They
other
can
friendly
buff each other.
units. Yes.
That's fine.
When it first
I'm
came
gonna
out,
take
when it
two
first came
of
out, it
these
could buff the
units
own
then.
unit, which was just overpowered anyway. So that's
Yeah.
fine. That's gone. it was
Well,
very
that's fine,
cheap for
because-
+1 chance.
I can still take two of these units, have them buff each other, and
Yeah,
have my little
that's
psychic group. Right?
that's the idea.
And now when I
and-
face Dave with this list, I can kill one of them and watch how crushed he is early on in the game, which will be a great morale hit and help me win.
I've already got PTSD from caster rolls going against me. But like, so I will play Inquisition at some point because it like the fucking double activation rule is powerful as shit, right? Like, I appreciate you've brought power controls onto it, limiting it a bit, but that's really
expensive.
powerful and it's expensive. But for me, it's the assassins are more accessible. I like the reshuffling of the units and, of course, the caster groups. But so yeah, that's what it. But I wanted to kind of we've had a really nice time just going a bit off piste here. But I wanted to talk to you and ask what's next for caster.
Okay. So caster rework is coming. It's actually going to be bundled in with Mark/debuff.
Yeah.
V2. I mean, not that big as V2 as but basically, I'm gonna give this one more shot and see if it works. But basically, my idea is again using the poll to kind of like understand, and also like I've learned what works, what doesn't work, blah blah blah. So basically, the idea is to bring back marks and debuffs so some of the marks and debuffs were currently turned into tokenless rules, right? It's just the unit gets +1 to hit, and it I don't know, it doesn't feel quite right. Like for those that are not in the know, the actual back at the beginning of the whole design cycle, the idea with the marks was actually that marks were not meant to work the way that they work now, definitely, and not the way that they work at the beginning of the beta. The original idea was this. Morale is, to me, a very important part of the game. But there are a lot of people that kind of forget that morale is there and that morale matters. So originally, the way that marks work, I don't remember if they were called marks, I think they were called something else, was that these were all morale-activated rules. So the idea was, pick an enemy unit, they must take a morale test, and if failed, something happens. Which basically meant that if you want, you can make sure that your opponent cannot ignore that morale is part of the game, right? So the idea was like, hey, let's find a way to bring morale. But then, we went through some feedback and whatever, and people were like, And also, they're kind of, unfortunately, it's one of those where it's like, well, then you're going to face an army that's all fearless. And now, your whole thing, whatever. It's tough to balance in terms of like points as well, like for the calc. Because you have to do an average, whatever. So anyway, they were eventually changed to marks, where it's just like, hey, you pick an enemy unit, and XYZ happens. So my idea right now is using the lots of the information that we got and the poll. I want to go back to bringing back I want to go and bring back the marks and debuffs in the way that they were before, in the sense like pick an enemy unit, but I want to make it very reduced. Like I want it to be like 1, maybe 2 units in your army have it, like one big unit. So whenever I do these, whenever I'm putting rules in the back end, they're kind of split in 2. You have the rule that applies to units, and you have the rules that apply to single models. Not a big difference, but basically, in my mind, these are 2 categories. So I will say like, okay, I want it on one big guy. So on, you'll have it on a tank or on a dragon or on a whatever, and you'll have it on one unit. Where it makes sense, because also like if it's only on the big guys, you'll never see it in skirmish, and I want to make sure that you'll see it in skirmish. But anyway, I want to bring it back, but very, very reduced, and use the information that we got from players to understand like which marks does nobody care for, should just be out of the game, which marks should be more available, which marks should be gone, that stuff. So basically bring back marks / debuffs in the way that they worked before, but in a reduced mind control. Enemy gets -1 to hit, enemy gets -1 to defense. You get unstoppable when you target the enemy.
I want to apologize to the community listening to this if you're going, why didn't that make it out of alpha? I was a strong proponent against this rule in one of the deployments that we had in Feedback Crew.
The morale thing?
The morale thing, because you put it behind spells as well. So I branded it as a double and triple conditional. And I was quite ardently against it. But
it made sense. It made sense.
I think it's a really cool mechanic. I think it's a cool mechanic to roll out, especially as you say in selective areas. I think it's especially cool in things like mind control, and I think it's good to have it on marks and not necessarily on spells. But I also like it because it opens up more design space, because you can make a unit make a morale check, make a unit make a quality check so you get around fearless, and also make a unit make a defense check. Because if your opponent's bringing a range of things, you could make a unit make a defense check. If it fails, it gets slow. And that's a way of saying that, or even if it passes, it gets slow. Your custodians are so heavily armored. Make an armor save. Make a defense check. If you've passed, you're now slow. Well done.
I don't know that people would be very happy about that, to be honest.
Probably not. Yeah,
I think people would be like, this rule sucks.
This is the thing, right? It's like the whole defense roll. If you roll a 1, make another attack. On a vibe, it's a nice idea to float, but yeah, someone could go why the fuck are you doing this to me?
It's also the beginning of an unhinged set as well.
What do you mean? Oh, if your opponent's good in passing, that they get the debuff.
Yeah, stuff like going make your opponent tell a joke. If you laugh, then the unit does something. That kind of nonsense from Magic. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, do it. That'd be fun.
But wait, hold on. We're derailing. Yeah. That was that was supposed to be a small note at the beginning.
Sorry.
So I want to do that and reduce the access to it. By the way, I'm also thinking of generally looking at some of the new rules that have been added and reducing a bit of access, because I noticed that there's some armies where it's on every unit now they have something new, and I want to kind of curb that. But okay. And then that leads me to caster rework.
Which is... So sorry, that was the question.
Yeah, so caster rework, like I said before at some point 2 hours ago in this call, the thought is essentially you have your armies of a primer type, a secondary type, and a third type, right? And that's your priority, so I want it to be kind of inverted. And the same thing then also with the attack spells. And actually there I'm debating a lot with the attack spells, because I want to make sure that it's kind of balanced. I still want to include the army attack spell, of course, in there, and then depending on which one you have, whatever. Okay, so a lot of people, like you spoke about before, judge the spell list by what is your strongest attack spell. And one of the things that I'm kind of testing out is... Okay, let's assume I now give you 3 attack spells, right? And I go through my beautiful sheet of all the things, and I say I'm going to give you 1 from the top, and 1 from the middle, and 1 from the bottom, right? Okay, now where do I put the top one? Because if I put the top one all the way at the bottom, it's a really desirable spell. It becomes extremely powerful. Everybody wants to just use that spell all the time. If I put it at the very top, it's a cheap, easy to cast, really desirable spell. Now nobody's looking at the rest of the list. I don't know that this is going to be the psychology of everyone, right? So I'm not exactly sure. I'm still testing out and I'm seeing how the spell lists look to kind of understand the balance of where should what be, because with spell lists being so small and being how do you say it, exclusionary essentially, because it's you see people oh, that's my spell, and they only use that spell. Yeah, it's not so easy.
I think also with spells, you have the issue of putting a really good spell at level 2 might make it significantly worse than the level 3 version, because let's say the level 3 version is 2 sets of 6 hits. 6 hits is enough to kill a unit of 5 models, which is one of the things in the game, right? Units of 5. But if you take it down a level, it's now 4 hits, which now isn't enough to kill that unit, which makes a big difference to, robbing activations and all sorts of stuff in the game. So it's not even just like this is super desirable. It's like this is super desirable at level 3, and at level 2, it's like less desirable. At level 1, I'm like, this is awful. So I think, it's a very, very complicated thing.
And I think, okay, you said at level 1 it's awful, and I think this is also important. We need to have level 1 spells, and they need to be weaker, and I think people cannot accept the fact that they're gonna have some spells that are a little bit shittier than the others, and they're this spell sucks, I want my level 1 to be different. I'm like, it will always suck. It's level 1, it's meant to suck, because it's meant to be super easy to cast. So,
Harvey described it really well. I appreciate, we've had calls before where you said you've not played D&D much, but like in D&D, the free spells, the ones that you don't take a resource slot to do, are called cantrips, and Harvey started referring to level 1 spells as cantrips, and I think that's actually a really good way. Like, you recently discussed in one of your things about changing the name of stress in Quest to being something else.
Power.
For me, like, just realigning level 1 spells as cantrips has changed my view on them quite nicely. That I think that, hey, this little level 1 spell as a cantrip, I'll fling it out and get this really cute little bonus effect, and the level 3 ones are the powerful ones. And I think that's really, like, that psychology to it is really important, but it also kind of covers that point of where do you have the good ones, the good spells in the list, which is also an impossible task to satisfy everyone on what's good and what's bad. It's tough.
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, you'd obviously be able to rank your spell lists to what people are likely going to use as well. Because right now, obviously, the costing works as like an average of the 6 spells you've got. But as we've spoken about, people pick 1 spell and they cast it over and over again, right? So if my spell list, and I only ever cast 2 sets of 6 hits, all the other spells in the list, I actually want to be really, really crap. I don't want to be super crap, so they drag the cost all the way down, and then I'm happy about it. Now, I'm not saying there's a solution to that problem, but it's also another thing, just like, it's one of the difficulties of designing a spell list, because what you'd like is every spell is equal likeliness to be cast. And the second you have one bad one, then actually it's like, it's worse.
Everything
it's
else.
Great to have a bad one, because everything else, feels better, right? Yeah. So you either want
say
all your
bad
spells
one,
to be equal.
You mean a low cost one?
So low cost in terms of points. Yeah.
Yes, in terms of points.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, sorry, yeah. So like, it can be a bad effect, but as long as it's bringing the average down, I don't care, right? Because even if it's So
that's actually one of the things. So back in the day, so spell lists now are built using. So we've completely reworked the way the spell lists are made, because you can create custom spells. By the way, once the Army Forge Studio is updated, you guys are you're gonna eat. My God, it's gonna be tasty. So the spell creator completely different, but before, spells were like manually made. And for example, one of the things that I did at the time is I made sure that every spell costs the same, or costs as close to each other. So every level 1 spell was, 15 points, and sure, you had one that was 18 points, you had one that was 14, 13 points, but they were meant to be there. Whereas now with the spell creator, like, you can totally make a spell list where like the first spell is 100 points. I mean, that's kind of crazy, but you can do it technically. So yeah, it's a toughie. It's a toughie there.
It's interesting. Well, brilliant. We're really excited. This is, so for the people who've made it this far into the video, thank you very much for watching, of course. But this is Monday the 29th of September, so we've just had the Heroes Aura patch come out. We haven't even spoken about that, but I'm not going to get into that one right now. We can have that chat at another time when we see everything round out. Next Monday, which I don't know what the date of it is, it'll be like the 6th of October. Tano, you've given us a really helpful timeline showing that is the caster and buffs, debuffs, tags. Update to beta, and then we're going to be into the final 3 weeks, which is going to be so exciting. Really get some good playtesting under our belts. We're excited for it, but I think after 2 hours, let's say thank you very much, Tano, for joining us. Thank you everyone for watching. And Tano, before we sign off, I will typically say, and I've been trying to make this point throughout all the videos, beta is going to change a lot. It can be very tiring, but get your playtesting in, give the feedback, make it positive. That's my message. Tano, do you have any message for the players who are watching this video about how what you want to say about
Stop
beta?
discussing in my threads.
Other than no conversations in threads.
Stop discussing in the threads. It's very nice to watch you guys discuss, but it doesn't help. It doesn't help. Like, I'm just reading people talk. Oh, I think this, and I think this, and I'm like, great. That's not feedback. Honestly, like, ideally, when you give feedback, try to make sure it's actionable. Like, sometimes I see people say like, oh, I generally feel that all the armies I play are kind of, on the shorter ranged weapon side. And I'm like, context, like, what are the armies that you play? What are the weapons?
Okay.
Like, give me something. Like, I'm not saying don't give me that feedback. It's like, but give me the things where I can be like, okay, I understand it's these units, or it's these armies, or it's these types, or it's these things. Like, give me actionable feedback. And if you've watched, like, I've been pretty quick, and like, I fix things and I change things. Like, if the thing is clear, oh baby, like, we can do it right now. I can go update the Army Forge right now. That's not a problem. But the problem is when things are muddy and it's like it's not clear what you're really communicating, what it's really about, and of course it cannot always be clear. I understand that. But as much as possible, try to make your feedback actionable, and then you might see it happen.
Smashing. Right. Well, thank you very much, Tano, for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And this has been Don't Think, Just Charge. We'll see you soon. Cheers.